What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video here at Wall Street PR. In today's video, I'm going to be going over Palantir Technologies. Ticker symbol is PLTR, and as you guys can see over here on the right hand side of your screen, they recently just hit an all-time low this week of $6.61 per share, and they're currently trading at just $6.71 per share following their most recent earnings report. You can see they were listed as an IPO back at about $8, $9 per share. They shot all the way up to this all-time high, if I go over here, of $45 per share back on 1/27 of 2021. Ever since then, they kind of consolidated in this range for a while until late. They just pulled back really hard alongside the majority of other stocks in this current market and have pulled back now to that all-time low. You can see the RSI indicator is indicating that they are oversold, sitting at 21.9. This MACD indicator is still looking pretty bearish as well. But before I go over the chart and give my price target prediction and analysis, as always, I want to go over some of the recent news and talk about the entire market as a whole. You can see over here, if you Google stock market crash, there's a ton of articles that are going to be popping up from major financial websites. You can see this one's titled "The Stock Market Crash is Just the Beginning. The worst of the stock market crash may be yet to come," according to Wall Street's fear. Market crash, monster growth stocks to buy right now. Stock market crash, the S&P will fall 20%. Economists warn. So, I mean, there's just a ton of fear going on in the market. Obviously, inflation's really high. The CPI data that came out today wasn't as good as it was initially expected. So there is a lot of bearish news, hence why we have been in this bear market as of late. Tons of these high growth stocks have been absolutely beaten down, and Palantir is clearly no exception. If we take a look over here at some of the recent news, you can see this is from Bloomberg. This was published on May 9th of 2022, so about 2 days ago. It's called Palantir Craters Most Since 2022 on Wider Than Expected Loss. The loss was $101 million or 5 cents per share in the first quarter, and the sales forecast for the second quarter is at least $470 million. You can see that Palantir shares plummeted as much as 22% on Monday, the biggest intraday drop since September of 2020, after the software maker reported mounting losses and a disappointing sales forecast. Obviously, Palantir has been around for a while, but they haven't been listed on major exchanges for that long. So this is still a notable thing to point out, that they were down the most they've ever been in a single day since September of 2020, when they initially began to IPO. You can see the company lost $101 million in the first quarter, a sign that it's struggling to improve margins by offering more automated data analysis software. The net loss was an improvement over the same period a year ago, but wider than analysts expected. You can see the loss was 5 cents a share, the company said in a statement on Monday. And revenue in the second quarter will be at least $470 million, Palantir said. And analysts had been expecting $487 million on average, so a slight miss in expectations there. If we take a look down here as well, you can see revenue growth from government customers slowed to just 16%, with sales totaling $241.7 million. Although that's better than the 6% growth analysts expected, it's the slowest quarterly growth for the segment since Palantir began reporting results as a public company in late 2020. Scroll down a little bit further. You can see Palantir expects government revenue to increase throughout the rest of the year, driven by what executives painted as an increasingly violent and uncertain future where conflict is the norm, they said on a conference call with analysts on Monday. Both CARP and Chief Financial Officer Dave Glazer warned of possible nuclear war. The threat of a nuclear event is so much higher than is being presented in the public. It's almost surreal to watch the coverage. So, I mean, they're kind of all over the place with this earnings report, talking about nuclear war, not really talking too much about how they're going to turn things around and where the company is headed. Alex Karp, that CEO, the former PayPal CEO, has been kind of given a long-term kind of approach and view on the company. He said that long-term investors will be handsomely rewarded if you are a holder and an investor in his company. But nonetheless, these past few months have not done well for long-term holders, losing a ton of their gains and dipping below their initial IPO price. Next, if we take a look over here on Fintel, and this is taking a look at the institutional ownership filings that have come out, these 13F filings. You can see the red means that a hedge fund or a firm, whatever the case may be, has sold Palantir shares. The green means that they have bought in. So if I just briefly go ahead and scroll through this, you guys can be the judge of this. There's a lot of green right there, but then you can see just a big swarm of red. And as I scroll further and further down, you can see just a lot of red coming in. There is some green spots, but I think this is pretty mixed with a slight edge to the sellers. and this has been going on, as you can see, since late April, even more than over a month ago if I scroll down even a little further. Some people were dumping shares prior to this earnings report, which isn't a good sign, especially when some people in the company are selling. That's never really a good sign at all. But nonetheless, if you take a look at all of these little E's, which represent the earnings reports over the past few months and honestly the past few years, you can see that basically every time they have earnings, the stock has plummeted. You can see they fell right here, they fell there. They didn't really do much there. Big drop there, another drop here, and then these last 3 earnings reports you can see resulted with some gap downs, and that's exactly what we saw with the stock price in this most recent earnings report. It went from about $9.48 all the way down to $6.66, and this is just a massive drop, guys. What has been a terrible year for these growth stocks. They've been absolutely hammered from their inflated highs. I think the high of $45 was obviously way too high and way too much of an overvaluation, but I do think that this price of $6.71 is way too much of an undervaluation, and I think this is the dip that you do want to buy if you are a long-term believer in Palantir Technologies like I am. I think they're going to turn things around. I think the market's going to bounce back. I think the bottom will come in a form, and all these stocks that are trading at these huge discounts will bounce back massively. I think Palantir is a $20 stock minimum. I think right here at $6, you really can't beat it. The absolute lowest, in my opinion, that's going to go is $5.50 or $5 at the absolute bottom. And personally, guys, I don't even think it'll go that low. I think we're going to see a long sustained move, a nice long recovery all the way back up to $20 per share, and that's going to be my first long-term price target on Palantir Technologies. But with that said, guys, in the short term, things can be rocky, especially given the fact that the current market conditions are not that great. But with that said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, please do subscribe to my channel. And as always, only invest what you can afford to lose, and I'll see you all in the next one.